Let's talk to Sunil Sharma, political commentator and host of the Rational Voices with Sunil podcast. Sunil, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
So, the world continues to spin in a sort of rather odd and unusual way. We've got Keir Starmer today over in Poland, where he's going to hold talks on a new security pact shortly after being in Ukraine, where he unveiled £4.5 billion worth of military aid to Ukraine as part of this 100-year partnership, which nobody knew about, and which he hasn't announced, and which he hasn't discussed, and which he hasn't even told Parliament about, right? So presumably the Speaker of the House will be a bit upset because he should have announced it surely in Parliament before he did it.
Crazy. It just seems with this war, it seems as if we want it to carry on more than anyone else. It seems Britain just want to keep this. We want to keep funding this war for reasons I think even Keir Starmer, I don't think he actually knows the actual full history of this war, the full history of Russia, Ukraine, and I think it's really absurd that we're prioritizing foreign countries on wars that we don't totally understand rather than our own country itself. And we're seeing all the stuff that's going on every day in terms of how the UK economy is declining, the grooming gang scandals, the law problems in this country. There's just so many issues that we can sit here and talk about, but his priorities are funding a war in Russia, Ukraine, which is just absolutely bizarre.
Well, apart from anything else, where's he found the £4.5 billion from? He keeps telling us there's a £22 billion black hole. There's no money for pensioners, no money for farmers, no money for schools, there's no money for parents, there's no money for the NHS. You know, where's he found it from?
He's taken the money away from the pensioners, he's taken the money away from the citizens by increasing taxes. This is where I think he's getting his money from, and it's a real shame because it's just the priorities for Keir Starmer is not Britain. It's really clear to see. I mean, I think a lot of people were skeptical of Keir Starmer as leader. I think there weren't too many people that had a positive outlook on him, but I don't think anyone expected him to be as bad as he has or to cause as much damage as he has in 6 months. And it's got to the point now where, you know, I don't want to go down this conspiracy route of WEF puppet and all this sort of stuff, but the harsh reality is this is not somebody who has the best interests of the United Kingdom. I cannot, under any way of think that this person genuinely has the best interests of this country, because there's nothing I've seen that suggests that.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, you know, it's not a conspiracy theory to say he's off to the old World Economic Forum, because he is. After he's been in Poland, Davos gets underway this weekend. I presume he probably will go straight there rather than coming back to Britain for the weekend. I don't know. He says that he always likes to spend Friday evenings with his family. I'm not sure they agree, because they seem to be quite happy with him managing to stay away for most of the time. But let's talk about the front page of the Daily Mail. Labour blasted over toothless grooming probes. This was Yvette Cooper yesterday announcing some local inquiries. Let's have a look.
We will also provide stronger national backing for local inquiries where they are needed to get truth and justice for victims and survivors.
Yeah, truth and justice for victims and survivors, but not all victims and survivors, because there's only 5 inquiries. Now, I said earlier on the show that this is obviously a step in the right direction. It's as close as Labour have come to admitting that they got it wrong, but it's not quite enough, is it?
No, nowhere near enough. And this local council, giving local councils resources to do this, it's not enough. Our local councils going to sit there and admit that they made these mistakes? Are they going to sit there and be as truthful and honest and sit there and say, we actually were not responsible, but we allowed for this to happen? You know, I think there has to be a level of almost independence on this. There needs to be dedicated police force. There needs to be dedicated security intelligence people in this, not local councils. They're stretched as it is. They don't have the resources as it is, and they've shown that they're incompetent in dealing with this already. The fact that now we expect them to all of a sudden come up with the ideas and come up with why it happened and come up with the appropriate responses is totally inadequate. It's not just 5 councils that have been affected. There's far more than that. So I think this is a really, although it's a step in the right direction, I think it's a really, really weak step in that direction. I think most people would have much preferred if Labour came out and were honest about it and said, look, like the reality is we don't investigate this. We wanted not to upset a community because we banked their large share of votes, so we didn't really properly investigate this. We should have. We even probably stopped the actual investigations happening because, again, we want to secure the vote bank. It was the wrong thing to do. Now we actually want to correct that, and we're going to employ lots of staff into it. We're going to get resources. We're going to pay police officers more. We're going to, there's so much more they could do. But this is such a weak, small step in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, is it going to be the beginning perhaps of a shift, though? Because they're very bad at making U-turns, even though Starmer used to make them all the time. Once they seem to have set down their policies, they seem to not want to deviate from them, like taking the winter fuel allowance away. Didn't have to do it when they did it, but they did it anyway. Same with the VAT on private schools. They didn't have to do it in January. They did it anyway. Same with the farmers' inheritance tax. They could have changed it around and made it slightly more tailored for targeting the right people. They haven't done that, but on this, I think this is as close as we're going to get to them admitting they got it wrong.
Maybe. I'm not so positive about it. I think there's no denying Elon Musk's role in this. I think the fact that it became an international matter, the fact that other countries were talking about this and almost, it was an embarrassment for the United Kingdom. I think that played a much bigger part than the well-being of those children, the fact that there's been systematic failures for decades. I think the fact that he got international stage for a leader who's more obsessed about looking good internationally than at home, I think that had a much bigger impact. And the reality is, Elon Musk or whoever other international leaders, they're not going to be sitting here constantly talking about United Kingdom. It's only when something as bad as this happens. So I think this is more just the power of social media, the power of leaders across the world basically saying what is going on in Britain. I think that's had a much bigger impact than the actual case of 250,000 girls being sexually exploited. I think the reality is he doesn't listen to the people of the United Kingdom. He listens to those people in Davos, the WEF. He listens to those profiles. And when they're saying what is going on in your country, I think he then wakes up and thinks, okay, I need to do something. I don't think it's anything to do with the United Kingdom people or what's in their best interests.
You may be right. I'll tell you somebody else who doesn't listen to the ordinary people of Britain, and certainly not the ordinary people of London, Sadiq Khan. This is an amazing piece of footage of Sadiq Khan being incredibly arrogant in a questioning session with Susan Hall, who formerly was the leader of the Conservatives in the London Assembly. Have a look at this.
I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
To avoid any misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes, if you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for what's a misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that. It's all over the television. You know exactly what I mean by that. These gangs of people that are grooming young girls for sex. Do we actually have those in London?
I'm unclear, Chair, what is meant by the question. If you could spell it out, I can answer.
I've just spelt it out. Are you not listening? It's the sort of gangs that groom young girls at a young age for sex. Exactly how much clearer do you want me to be?
I mean, he's just been deliberately awkward there, isn't he? Incredible.
I don't think there's a more dangerous person in UK politics than Sadiq Khan. What he's doing to London is nothing short of disgraceful. There's a reason why businesses, corporations, individuals, talent are all leaving United Kingdom, in particular London. And I think he is a major, major reason behind that. If you look at the decline of London under his leadership, directly as a consequence, there's a lot of the political stuff you can argue. You can look at blame Tories. You could argue it's been something that's gone on for years and something that's been brewing, something that's not been addressed. And there's definitely a reality to that in terms of the UK general growth decline. It's not something that's happened overnight, although Sakira seems really want to make it even as bad as possible, as soon as possible. But I think with Sadiq Khan, there is a clear correlation between when Sadiq Khan became the mayor of London and London's decline. Its decline in safety, its decline in as an economic superpower. The longer this man stays in power of London, the more the worse the city gets. And it's a real shame, because this used to be the place where everyone talks about as being one of the economic superpowers. It's now no one across the globe is really that interested in London. They'd rather look towards New York, Tokyo, other places, Dubai, other areas as economic hubs than London. And that reality, that reason is because of Sadiq Khan. He's out of touch. He has no idea what's going on in London. Again, just like Keir Starmer, but I'd argue Keir Starmer almost on steroids, and he's been doing this a lot longer than him. So I don't think I don't think there's a more dangerous person in UK politics than Sadiq Khan.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. Sunil Sharma, their political commentator, host of the Rational Voices with Sunil podcast.